My first motorcycle wasn't a motorcycle. It was a £70 Honda scooter. A little Honda Vision NSC50 that didn't even run when I bought it. And honestly, looking back now, I have absolutely no idea how I survived it. I remember being dropped off and thinking I had bought the bargain of a century. But in reality, I had bought someone else's problem. It didn't have any signs of life. Half the panels were loose. The thing was held together with zip ties, tape, and mostly hope. I don't think a single part matched properly. But I didn't care, because for the first time in my life, I owned something with two wheels and an engine. I knew absolutely nothing about bikes back then. Nothing. I didn't know what a bearing was, don't know how a carb worked. I barely knew how a bike actually started. But I remember sitting on the floor with a beer and a handful of tools borrowed from my neighbour and thought, I may as well crack on with it. I thought about it logically, and thankfully my electronics background came in handy. The battery had 12 volts, the ignition worked, but the starter solenoid, nothing. I cleaned it up with a toothbrush and some WD-40, and somehow, like a miracle, it started right up, on the button. I can still remember the feeling, hearing it start properly for the first time. It wasn't even a good sound, it sounded terrible. But to me, it sounded like freedom, and tangible proof that I fixed something. The best part is, it took me less than an hour to get running. Less than an hour, and suddenly I felt like a mechanical genius. Looking back now, that scooter was unbelievably safe, and honestly, deadly. The tyres were questionable, the brakes were there, sometimes. Everything rattled, and I'm fairly certain that some of the fairings were structural at that point. I used zip ties to fix things that should never have been bodged so many times. I even used to carry a pack on me at all times. But when you're young and desperate to ride, none of that matters. Then came the CBT. I was nervous as hell, trying to act confident while secretly panicking about every single thing. I remember sitting there with the helmet on thinking, people actually trust me to ride on these roads? And then eventually, after the CBT, that moment comes. You pull away on your own for the first time, and I swear something changes in your brain. People who don't ride won't understand this part, but riders will. That first ride feels unreal. It's like your world suddenly expands overnight. Roads that you ignored your whole life suddenly become adventures. Every tiny journey feels massive. I remember my first ride. It was probably 2 miles, and somehow it felt like I had crossed a country. Every roundabout felt important, every bend felt exciting, and every traffic light felt like part of the experience. And because the scooter was so bad, every ride also felt slightly terrifying. You were never fully convinced that it would actually make it home. I broke down constantly. I pushed that thing home more times than I can count. And when I say push home, I mean full gear, helmet on, sweating, pretending I wasn't dying inside whilst people drove past. But weirdly, those are some of my favourite memories now, because your first bike isn't really about the bike. It's about who you were when you rode it and before you rode it. Back then, we didn't care about engine size, power, brand names. We cared about one thing, it was freedom. That little scooter gave me my first taste of true freedom. Late night rides for absolutely no reason. Petrol stations, feeling exciting. Learning roads, learning who I was. And I think that's why your first bike never leaves you. You can own faster bikes later, better bikes, more expensive bikes, but none of them ever feel quite the same. Because your first bike was there for the beginning, the first ride, the first mistake, the first breakdown, and the first proper feeling of freedom. And honestly, I'd give anything to ride that idiotic little scooter one more time, if it started.